So I have two quotes
Okay.
and then a question. So the first quote is, "Today is the shadow of tomorrow. Today is the present future of yesterday. Yesterday is the shadow of today. The darkness of the past is yesterday, and the light of the past is yesterday. The days of yesterday are all numbered in sum in the world once, because once upon a time there was a yesterday. Yesterday belongs to the dead because the dead belongs to the past. The past is yesterday. Today is the preview of tomorrow, but to me, only for my better and happier point of view. My point of view is the thought of a better or try. Reality is today of eternity. The eternity of yesterday is dead. Yesterday is as where are you going?
I'm just checking.
Are we going?
Saw something blink.
The eternity of yesterday is dead. Yesterday is as one. The eternity of the one is the eternity of the past. The past is once upon a time. Once upon a time is past. The past is yesterday today. The past is yesterday today, while we're searching for tomorrow." End quote. Lord Quas.
Lord Quas?
Quasimodo.
Oh, Quasimodo. So who wrote that? That's
Now, the second quote is, "The music is different here. The vibrations are different. Not like planet Earth. Planet Earth sounds like planet Earth sounds of guns, anger, and frustration. There was no one to talk to on planet Earth who would understand and set up a colony here." End quote. Sun Ra.
Sun Ra.
So, with those two quotes, did we really go to the moon?
Well, it's a matter of debate. Some people think it's not. Some people think it is. I don't know. I didn't go. I have a sneaking suspicion that what was shown on television was filmed by Stanley Kubrick. Whether we actually went to the moon or not, whatever. I'm not sure.
Because I heard this thing where they said that Kubrick filmed a mock moon landing, but we did go to the moon. But what they played on television was mock footage, just because, one small step for me, I die on national television.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't have that.
Yeah. And, I mean, it would take radio signals like 12 minutes or something to get from the moon to the Earth.
Yeah, like in
69.
69, they're broadcasting footage from the moon?
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah, they set up like a giant satellite dish just to do
My
that.
fucking cell phone doesn't work in my backyard sometimes.
Well, to be fair, analog radio waves do travel further than microwaves.
Okay, fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when my dad was what was he? He was 18 years old, 19 years old.
Oh wow!
At the time.
Okay.
And he remembers on TV there were these orange letters blinking on the television that said simulation at the bottom of the screen the whole time. Or like for the first 4 minutes or something, 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah, I know lots of people who remember that. My granddad remembers that. And it just says simulation the whole time.
Is there any
like people? No, I mean, no one had. There's no one who like recorded their TV set.
There's got to be someone who like recorded it to a VHS or something. Did
In
they have
69?
VHS?
No,
They didn't have VHS.
he couldn't record anything. Yeah,
Oh shit!
yeah. So there's
I
like
just dated myself
VHS.
in a young way by bringing up VHS.
Could you record television onto like a vinyl record or?
It's like I had a student once, and I played him.
I mean, they did have tape, but
Yeah.
there was no like
I
recording
didn't.
off
Yeah,
of a TV with a deck or anything like that.
I played him. I guess hip hop is the name of the game today. I played him, and I was teaching him a Tribe Called Quest
Oh yeah,
song, and the lyric is back in the day when I was a teenager, before I had status and before I had a pager. Mm-hmm. And the student goes, "What's a pager?"
oh, yep.
And I was like, well,
Well, it was this little
before
thing.
cell phones, you had this little thing, and someone would call you, and their number would pop up, and then you had to find a landline to call them back.
What's a landline?
Yeah, and he goes, "What's a landline?
What's a payphone?
Is that for boats?"
Technically. There, yeah, I mean, that's
And
a
I was
good
like,
question.
Oh boy, here we go.
At least he was thinking.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
But shit.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things. Like, I'm a huge Kubrick fan, and
Same.
2001 came out 3 years earlier,
Yeah.
and like he had that technique.
Well, he apparently was only able to use that camera that NASA made him
Oh, the Hasselblad.
and it cost.
Well, it was made by a German contractor that NASA hired. But
that's what NASA's famous for that, right?
yeah, hiring German dudes. Yeah, I think they're famous for that.
The best engineers. And he only could use that camera for the movie Barry Lyndon. Because he did the whole movie only by candlelight.
Yeah. Yeah, and they needed some real nice f-stops.
What's interesting is I heard
Or
him
shutters.
say that he could only use it for that one film. So what happened to that camera? Because it apparently cost like $5 million or some
They
crazy shit.
destroyed all the cameras and all the film that the moon landing used. Yeah, some guy took him home, some NASA engineer. I can't remember his name, but he was like the deputy director of NASA at the time, and in 1973, I think, he took all of the Apollo film footage and the cameras, and he burned them in his backyard. Or yeah, I can't remember if it was in his backyard, but yeah, he just destroyed them because his excuse was, well, I didn't think anybody would need them in the future. I didn't think anybody would be interested in the original tapes. And like, we're just supposed to believe that.
It's not only one of the greatest achievements
Right.
of all mankind ever. Oh, who wants to keep these?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it is bullshit. Probably because it wasn't the real footage. If they went to the moon, it was just some shit filmed by Stanley Kubrick in New Mexico, in some sound studio.
Was it New Mexico? Do you know this? Is that a thing?
Well, I mean, when you look at aerial photos of Area 51, the so-called hangars, like Hangar 18 and stuff like that, they actually look a lot more like movie studios than plane hangars.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's some like movie guy who just saw some photos and was like, "Oh, where's that soundstage?" And someone was like, "That's Area 51. That's an airplane hangar." And the guy's like, "No, that's a soundstage." Yeah. So I don't know. It's it's just a theory, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, that's why it's so secret, because the government films a lot of propaganda in these places. It's like, it's not that they don't want you to see some secret stealth airplane. It's that they don't want you to see that they fake a lot of shit in these places and then put it on the news as if it's real.
Why does this? Can you hear that?
Oh yeah. It's a little squeaky or something, crackly.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's like, I can't remember exactly, but there was someone you were telling me about. They wrote this book, and they something with Area 51.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I'm?
I mean, I've read a bunch of books
Too
that
many
mention
books,
Area
yeah.
51. There's I know there's a famous one. I don't know if it mentioned Area 51 too much, but I think the one that we discussed was by Philip Corso, called the Day After Roswell.
Yes, that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one.
So, do you think we went to the moon?
I don't know. I'm really not sure. I mean, you hear today's NASA engineers, and they talk about how they lost the technology to get to the moon, like that we can't get through the Van Allen belt because there's too much radiation and it would kill
That's
anyone.
what I was going to bring up, the Van Allen belt.
Yeah, so it's like, what do you mean you lost the technology? What does that mean? And they can't explain it. Like, well, we looked for how we went to the moon, and we just can't figure out what those engineers did back then. And it's like, so you are the new engineers, and you have no idea what the old engineers did to get to the moon.
So what is exactly the Van Allen belt?
It's like a sheath of radiation
Around the Earth.
around the Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like just outside the magnetosphere. And because like the magnetosphere is what protects us from that radiation, and between that magnetosphere and the rest of space is like the way that the cosmic radiation interacts with the outside of the magnetosphere creates like this really intense radiation zone that's like, it basically will destroy any organic life that tries to get through it. And yeah, they're like thin spots. They say like, oh, they found a thin spot in the radiation belt that they timed correctly and went through it like that, and they had the correct shielding at that point. But it's like they don't know how to do it today. That's highly suspect to me. And no one explains how they lost the technology. It's like, well, maybe they never had it, and you just think they had it because you want to believe we went to the moon. Mm-hmm. So you say they lost it. No one told you we lost it. It's just you can't find it.
And yeah, and why did no other countries ever go to the moon?
Right. Probably because they couldn't.
I mean, then I start questioning, like, even, like, the robot footage.
Yeah.
Like, drone, like, little, like, whatever the shit on Mars and stuff like that, because the audio, the videos are always, like, so bad.
Oh, they're so bad. And, yeah, and, like, there was a in the 70s when they landed the Viking on Mars, the probe, and they had the footage coming into the NASA offices. There was one NASA broadcast engineer, like one of the radio engineers who was dealing with the footage, and he saw that the television sets were red shifted, like, you know how you can change the color on a TV set? Like, turn it blue, turn it green, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he saw that all the sets in NASA were turned red. So he went around all the rooms and color corrected them. And so that the sky showed up blue and the sand showed up, regular sand colored. And the American flag, you could see the white, the blue, and the red because they had the robot plant the flag. And his superior came in, threatened to fire him, red shifted all the TVs back, and then told him not to touch the TVs again. So he turned the colors red again.
So it was just some desert on.
Yeah, it was probably like Arizona or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And, like, you can look at that old footage and
Where did you read that? You read that?
Yeah, there's a book called Dark Mission by Richard Hoagland. And he investigates all the NASA bullshit. And he's a photographic analyst. Like, that's his professional job. So he, like, analyzes all the footage of this stuff and comments on it. And then he, like, looks into the history of NASA. He interviewed, like, dozens of NASA engineers about their experiences during, from the Gemini program to the Viking program and beyond. And, this one guy was like, yeah, I mean, I saw the colors were wrong, so I corrected them, and then I got threatened with being fired for color correcting the TVs, and the guy came around and turned them red again. And you can look at that old footage from the Viking things, and, like, they have the American flag there, and yeah, the blue on the flag looks purple, the white stripes look red, like the whole thing is red shifted.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like, that's not the atmosphere, that's just someone red shifted the TV set. Yeah, it's real suspect. And, like, we're just told to believe all this stuff. And the thing is, it's like, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was founded by Jack Parsons, a student of Aleister Crowley, an infamous liar and asshole.
I did not know that.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah, Jack Parsons is, like, an occultist. He's always doing ritual magic. He wanted to, like, give birth to the Antichrist. He wanted to, like, get a woman pregnant, and he did a ritual to, like, bring the Antichrist in the world to destroy Western civilization. Like, this is the guy that created the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, which became NASA. And he was, like, one of Aleister Crowley's closest students. And then after Jack Parsons dies and the government takes over JPL and starts to found NASA, who's the director of NASA? Walter fucking Dornberger, an SS officer. And Wernher von Braun, the deputy director, another SS officer. Mm-hmm. And then who becomes director of NASA after Dornberger dies? A fucking pagan Egyptian priest. I forget the guy's name. But he was, like, a legitimate, like, pagan ritual priest from Egypt.
You could say it in a simple way without me trying to figure it out, but, like, NASA was founded by a bunch of Nazis.
Yeah, Nazis and occultists.
They were Nazis, like, and then we brought them here.
Yeah, so, like, why would you believe them?
You do this, they were fucking Nazis. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
That's my issue with the whole thing. It's like, why would you believe?
So isn't there some sinister thing behind motives with that? Yeah,
right. Like,
why wouldn't you question that?
Yeah, why would you not question a bunch of fucking SS officers with missiles being shot out of fucking Houston, Texas, and Cape Canaveral, Florida? Mm-hmm. Like, these were war criminals who built a space program in the middle of the U.S. and we're just like, oh, they're the greatest people ever. It's the greatest accomplishment. Let's not question it at all.
Took us to the moon.
Yeah. It's
Did
so
we
cool.
Go to the moon? I don't know if we went to the fucking moon or not.
I don't know either. I've never been to space. I don't know what it's like.
You would think
I don't know if it's possible.
And this is where I question. You would think going to the moon, walking on the moon, would be one of the most well-documented
Right.
experiences of humankind
Yeah.
within our society, our like reincarnation of, America or whatever technology.
Yeah.
You have the technology to fucking land on the moon and walk around and shit. You think that would be the most well-documented thing ever, but the footage was deleted?
Yeah, they burned it. Some dude burned all the original footage. So we only have like the copies of the copies left over.
It's just suspicious. I mean, it's not that I'm saying I know this, that, or the other thing, or
Right.
have any opinion. It's just, it's like the same thing where you hang out with your friend and then they say something weird and you're like, that's suspicious.
Yeah, it's just like that's just
You
weird.
might be lying to me.
Yeah, it's like, you just want me to take your word for it because like you put some shit on TV and you launched a bottle rocket out of Florida. Like I didn't see where the rocket fucking went.
So crazy.
Yeah, it's like nobody saw where the rocket went. Just went up into the sky and disappeared. Could have fucking gone anywhere. If we went to the moon, it was not with conventional rocketry. Like maybe there was some ancient teleporter mechanism, like something that the Atlanteans left over, and they just teleported from here to the moon, or like a flying saucer that could just teleport from here to the moon.
Plasma.
Yeah, something, but like flying. Maybe like they didn't have to fly through the Van Allen belt. They can just blink past
Skip
it.
it.
Yeah. Or they had some other type of exotic
Why is it
technology.
called the Van Allen belt? Sounds very Nazi.
Well, I mean, I think it was a German guy who like discovered it, or he was like the first guy to measure it, or something like that.
Why are Germans so good at like science and stuff?
That's a deep question. We could get into that in a little bit. I mean, I can briefly go over. They had a there's a lot of context to throw into here. Well, anyway, Germany was in a special position from the 17th century onward.
Well, let me just
Yeah.
just
Yeah, go.
science and what's the word for it? When you're
What?
making something,
Engineering?
engineering, science and engineering, they seem to crush.
Yeah.
Why?
They it's like, well, to make a long story short, they use a lot of oracles, mediums. They had a lot of secret societies throughout the last like 4 or 5 centuries, where they would take young women and like, so have you heard of the Kundalini of the Earth? That there are hot spots around the Earth, and there's one particular hot spot that has the most spiritual energy, and it moves every like couple thousand years.
Vaguely.
So it used to be in Tibet for like 1800 years or something.
Yeah, I've heard about it in Tibet. Yeah.
And in the 16th century,
Buddha.
it moved to Germany. And that's like a great secret that all the secret societies keep, and like they'll probably want to kill me for saying it, but I'm just kidding. But if this was 150 years ago, they would have killed me for saying this. But the Kundalini of the Earth is now coming out of Germany. And so people in Germany are born with certain psychic sensitivities, especially certain women. And so there are a lot of secret societies that built around these women that were built up, including like the Tula Society and the Vril Society and the Lizard Society and like all these different groups. And they just would exploit young women who had psychic sensitivities, get them to communicate with, they'll say they're aliens. Some people say they're gods. Some people say they're like Aryan ancestors or whatever these non-human intelligences are, or like ascended masters or whatever. Their identity is not my concern for this discussion, but they would get knowledge from some entities that these young women would channel through them, and they would just ask questions about science and engineering and things like that, and then they would get ideas on how to build certain devices, how to understand certain sciences from these channels, these trance channelers. And so the Nazis were built on these secret societies, like the Thule and the Vril societies created the Nazis. And there were these like ritual magicians, these occultists who exploited these oracles to figure out, how best they could essentially conquer the world, how they could maneuver in politics, how they could create weapons, that sort of thing. And, that was like the power behind the Nazis, were these occult groups who gained knowledge through trance channelers, and a lot of it was scientific. Yeah, it's weird. And some of those guys.
So where's it going next?
Where's what going next? Oh crap! I've got to set these.
The Kundalini Pinnacle.
Oh, who knows? I mean,
Was it in Egypt, Jerusalem?
well,
Ever? Was that like the origin of it?
oh, the origin. Who knows where the first place it shot out was? I mean, it's probably been everywhere. It'll probably go everywhere again.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, sounds weird to say that it makes sense, but like, energy, intention, it's a real thing. I mean, it sounds silly. Oh, it's a real thing. Like, no, but it is. I mean, we were talking earlier, it's like growing a plant in your house. If you put it in a dark corner and you play black metal and you're like, fuck you piece of shit, like the plant's gonna probably die. But if you put it in a nice spot where it gets nice sun in the morning, you play it some nice music,
Right.
whatever, it's gonna grow and flourish.
And the earth has
An
areas
intention,
of-
its own
there's
intention.
some areas of black metal, like in the western United States, and then there are areas of
I love
nice.
black metal. Just
But, oh
to
yeah,
clarify.
me too. But we're talking about energies that damage organic matter. That's
Yes.
what you were making that analogy.
Yeah.
So there are areas that have energies that damage organic matter, and right now those are like west of the Mississippi, where it's like the worst place to live. And there are areas of nice places, like where the Kundalini of the Earth comes out in Germany. It's probably moving toward Russia, and that's probably where it's going to be for a long time. That's what most of these secret groups believe.
Whoa.
Yeah, and like Russia will be the next great civilization. That's kind of the idea.
And America is just gonna.
Well, America has a challenge ahead of itself. It has to overcome this challenge of materialism, technocracy.
That's the reason we faked the moon landing.
Right.
We spent $3 trillion and we have nothing to show for it. We need to boost the morale of the world.
Well, I think it
The
was.
country.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a few reasons why people wanted to make everybody think about space or the moon or whatever.
I'd like to believe that we did go, just the footage was fake.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily
Excuse me.
think that we went, but we did not go by strapping bottle rockets to people's asses. We probably used like a flying saucer, or some ancient Atlantean craft, or a teleporter or something like
What the
that.
frick is a flying saucer, though?
Well, I just mean like an exotic method. I'm just saying it's not a fucking bottle rocket with gasoline burning out of the end. Like, it was something much more easy to handle, much safer, much more advanced. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
It's so impractical. It's like that's what a fucking chimpanzee would do that wants to go to space. It would find gunpowder, put it in a tube, and strap it to its ass. Like, that's not a great accomplishment, in my opinion. I mean, the ancient Chinese, like, we've had fucking bottle rockets for like 3,000, 5,000 years. Mm-hmm. And then we just strapped one of those rockets to a dude's ass and said it's the greatest achievement ever.
Gunpowder.
Yeah. I'm sure if we went to the moon, it was with exotic technology that they just didn't want to share with the public. So they faked a whole thing just to be like, look, this is the best technology we have. Bottle rockets. That's the best. Don't think about anything else. Because, you had the Defense Intelligence Security Command, or DISC, since like 1952. And like they had an organization called DISC whose object was to reverse engineer foreign technology. These are the dudes making UFOs. Yeah, and they're reverse engineering, I don't know, something they found from Atlantis or something they found from maybe an alien or an interdimensional being, whatever it is. They're reverse engineering foreign technology in a government organization called DISC. It's a pretty big red flag. That I think they've had this technology since the late 40s, maybe even earlier. I mean, you have the Germans building Die Glocke in the 1920s. You have all sorts of stories like that. I mean, if you've got Die Glocke in the 1920s, and then these guys come over with Project Operation Paperclip after World War II. The same guys who are working on Die Glocke, even including Walter Dornberger. And he's building bottle rockets now? No. Not a chance. He's building something much more exotic than a fucking bottle rocket.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and so they've made a whole fake bottle rocket program to make us think that's the best technology we've got. And then they put the real astronauts inside of like a fucking UFO or some shit. You know what I mean? And that's how they got there. And they just didn't want to admit that. I don't know. But there's also like ritual reasons why they'd want you to think we went to the moon.
That was the other thing that I heard, which I thought was... It's like, why is that even a story? But I mean, you can look it up, Google it or whatever, that they did a Masonic ritual in the capsule before they went on to the moon. 33
minutes right after they landed. And the landing spot in the Sea of Tranquility, at the time of the ceremony that they did, the constellation of... Or was it the constellation of Orion, or was it the star Sirius? I can't remember.
I think it was Orion.
Yeah, it was 19.47 degrees above the horizon. And 19.47 degrees is the tetrahedral angle. Like, if you put two tetrahedrons, like pyramids, inverted on top of each other, and then kind of just draw a sphere around them, so the sphere is just touching all the corners. The three corners of the tetrahedron will be at 19.47 degrees above the equator, above and below the equator of the sphere. And this is like what they call the interdimensional angle. If you look at 19.47 degrees above the equator of the Earth, north and south of it, those two tropics of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, these are UFO hotspots. There are a lot of monuments, like, ancient megalithic stone structures that were built on this region around the Earth, and there's a lot of UFO activity, and it's just like an interdimensional zone. So, like, the constellation of Orion was at 19.47 degrees above the horizon 33 minutes after they landed, and then they did the communion ceremony, the blood and bread of Horus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an ancient ceremony. Like, modern people do it. It's the blood and body of Jesus. It used to be the blood and body of Horus, the blood and body of Mithras, the blood and body of Tammuz. Like, this is an ancient ceremony. It's not a Christian or Catholic ceremony. This goes way back to prehistory, even before the Egyptians. And they were just continuing that. They did that on the moon. And so, and they did it, on July 20th, and that's like a thin veil time. A lot of UFO activity at the end of July. And it's just a weird thing that it was very ritualistic. And I think part of it was to derail certain movements occurring in the United States. Because you had, the Western daydream, every culture has a goal. Like, for instance, the Egyptians oriented their entire civilization, their entire government, everything about them was to navigate the afterlife. That was like the one thing they're interested in. And every culture has like a goal that they're interested in. Western civilization is, we want to expand. We like colonizing things. We like conquering things. We like eating up resources. We like building new houses. We like going outward. It's all about outwardness, adventure, resource gathering. That's the Western daydream, the Western goal. And in the 1960s, you have people who are like, okay, I'm done with this. I want to go inward. And you have like the hippie movement, or the neo-spiritual movement, and the occult revival and all of that. And people are like, I want to go inward now. I don't want to go outward. It's like, I don't want to buy a house. I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to care about money. I don't care about this expansion, external stuff. I want to go inward now. And the government was like, well, we can't have that. We need people externally oriented. Otherwise, we're not going to make any more money. So how can we externalize people's consciousness again? Well, do the most external ritual you could possibly do. Send a fucking rocket into space. Put a flag on the fucking moon. That is as external as you can go. Get everyone on the planet to watch this, and you will hypnotize everybody into, expansion and colonizing again. Right. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to do inward spiritual stuff. We're supposed to expand into space. Plant flags on all the fucking planets. And it derailed the inward spiritual movement. And this is why the baby boomers are so fucked up, because this happened to them. They were the hippies that wanted to go inward, And then the Freemasons and the government were like, nope, 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 nope. And they forced them back outward.
I don't think it's Freemasons, but I do know what you're
Well,
saying.
the
The same thing happened to our generation
Yeah, with 9/11.
with 9/11.
Yeah.
Same exact thing happened.
Well, those astronauts were Freemasons.
I think only 2 of them.
Dude,
All of them?
I think it was 12 of them.
Oh.
Like the Gemini, the Apollo program, and the, what was the other one? Or was it just Gemini and Apollo that had manned?
I don't remember.
I think it was like 12 of them were Masons. Yeah. And all the ones that walked on the moon, if they did, those were Masons, and the non-Masons had to stay in the capsules. The non-Masons never got to walk on the moon. Yeah. Only the Masons were allowed to.
Even with Kubrick?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Only the Masons got to walk around the set. and you know, another weird thing is that all the astronauts were hypnotized.
What?
Yeah. They were all hypnotized after the missions were over.
Where'd you get this from? This is just facts?
Yeah, this you can find in NASA's archives.
Why were they hypnotized?
It was for, you know, like psychological readjustment, you know, to make sure that it was easy for them to handle coming back to Earth.
They actually went.
Yeah, it's implanting. They implanted false memories, is what I think.
You think so?
Well, yeah, there was a document that came out in 2019. A journalist named Tim O'Neill wrote a book called.
I know him, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Chaos about Charlie Manson and his connection to the CIA.
I haven't read that book, but I've seen it.
It's amazing. Came out in 2020, I think, so it's pretty new. And it's incredible. He shows how the CIA actually created a lot of America's famous serial killers, and he proves it. And in 2019, he found a document in a police evidence locker. Now, this document was shown to Congress in the 90s, except a part of it was redacted. Like half a page was redacted. This was when a doctor, I think his name's like Dave Smith or something Smith, he was one of the guys who worked at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic in the 60s, experimenting on all the hippies. He was giving out LSD, doing hypnotism on all the hippies and stuff like that. He was the same guy who earlier was the guy who hypnotized Jack Ruby in his prison cell. You know, after Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald and killed him, and then they arrested Jack Ruby, put him in jail. And then a hypnotist went and saw Jack Ruby. And then after the hypnotist left, Jack Ruby couldn't remember his name, couldn't remember where he is, and he's like having a paranoid freak out. After like 5 minutes with the fucking hypnotist.
He's like, I'm Rack Juby.
Right, yeah. Wasn't even that close. And so in the 90s, Congress, the MK Ultra program was brought to Congress's attention, and they had a whole hearing on it. Like, Congress was pissed off. Some of these senators were like, you're fucking brainwashing people in the 1950s and 60s, and we had no idea, and this is the 90s now? And so this document was shown to them, but a large chunk of it was redacted, and the conclusion that they were asking for was, can you implant a false memory? Can you change people's beliefs? And they said, no, you cannot hypnotize anyone to do something they normally wouldn't do, and you cannot implant a false memory. Both these things are false. You can hypnotize people to do something they normally wouldn't do, and you can implant a false memory, because Tim O'Neill found this document in a police evidence locker in Virginia, and it was unredacted. He read the part that was blacked out, and he published it in his book. And it says that they were implanting false memories in people and changing their beliefs. What? Yeah. You could completely rewrite somebody's memories through hypnotism.
Rack Juby said this?
No. The doctor, I think his name was Dr. Dave Smith.
Rack Juby's
the hypnotist.
doctor.
Yeah, the hypnotist who was in the MK Ultra program.
Holy shit.
And he's the same guy who taught Charlie Manson how to hypnotize people. Because Charlie Manson used to hang out at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic.
He was hanging out with everyone. He was so charming, apparently.
Yeah. Well, it was his hypnotist skills. Like, Charlie Manson knew how to hypnotize people.
That's fucking craziness.
And nobody knew who taught him how to do that.
So you think that the astronauts that went to the moon were hypnotized to believe that they did go to the moon?
Yeah, when really they did no such thing.
That's freaking...
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I mean, if the government had the MK Ultra program, and they have the most important Cold War thing going on, which is the Apollo program, do you really think those astronauts are not going to be under the influence of MK Ultra? These are the two most important government programs ever built, MK Ultra and Apollo. It stands to reason that they're going to be interlinked in some way. Why wouldn't they be? You know? It's super important for the government to have this PR stunt go over well. So why wouldn't they brainwash the astronauts? It's the most secure, safest insurance they could do is to just brainwash the guys. Don't let them say that what they want to say. Don't let them have free will. Just fucking brainwash these guys. Let's get this over with, kind of a thing. If they're spending all this money on it, why wouldn't they do that? Mm-hmm. I think it's naive to believe that they wouldn't do that. You know? And
it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it sucks. It's really awful when you like start piecing these things together and you start thinking about it critically, and you're like, these are possibilities.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, and you know, if you've got the big enemy of the Soviet Union, you want them to think you landed on the moon.
Yeah.
But you didn't actually spend the trillions of dollars on the space program. You pretended to. Maybe you only spent a few $1 million on Stanley Kubrick. And then you get...
Oh, shit.
Then you get the Soviet Union to really spend trillions of dollars. You just bankrupted your enemy for... You tricked them.
That's a fucking sneaky tax cut.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we spent all this money. Actually, it's right here. Let me go.
Yeah. And the Soviet Union is going to go spend all that money.
Oh, God, I'm spiraling now.
Yeah.
No, I'm spiraling.
So they had
my mind.
They had more reasons to fake it than to do it for real. They had more incentive to fake it.
Oh, yeah, because of the money they put in, the promises they made.
Yeah.
The morale of the country itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we could do this before everyone else, we are truly the greatest country.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck, we can't do it. How do we... shit, it's actually not possible. Oh, damn it. JFK, why'd you make that promise?
Yeah. Not because it's easy, but because it is hard.
It's like, I'm going to come over and cook you the greatest steak you ever had in your life, and then, like, you get caught at work, and you're like, ah, shit, and you're like, I guess I'll spend $100 on McDonald's.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because I didn't have time to go, and I don't have time to cook.
Yeah. Everybody just watched some McDonald's on TV that day.
Oh, that's so fucked up.
You know, I wasn't there. I don't know what really happened, but just trying to piece it together.
I have no idea. I really don't have an opinion. I just like to think about it because it's crazy.
Yeah, I just ask questions.
Yeah,
It's so funny when you ask these questions and people get so mad at you. Like, it was the greatest accomplishment ever. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, can you prove it? It's like, I don't have to. I don't have to prove it. It was the greatest thing ever. Those men are heroes and you're jealous of them because you can't go to the moon and they went to the moon and you're jealous and you just hate America. And it's like, whoa. I'm just asking a couple questions, man.
Yeah.
People fly off the handle so quickly, dude.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny when that happens. You're like, oh, I hit a button.
Yeah, it touched a nerve.
You know, it's like, do you remember, like, when you were a kid and, like, your dad did something that pissed you off or whatever, and then, like, but you don't say that. You just say, like, one little, like, a trigger word. Or, like, a girlfriend or whatever it could be. Anything in your life. Like, certain people have, like, certain triggers.
Right.
Where all of a sudden they're not thinking, they're just spewing defense.
Yeah.
I fucking know, because otherwise my world is collapsed. You know,
Exactly.
it's like, oh, come on, dude. Like,
Yeah.
get your shit together, you know? Fucking get yourself organized down there.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Why?
Yeah, their whole worldview is built upon this on this stuff, and when you question it, they lose it.
It's so funny, but at the same time, like, it's sad, but it's still funny. It's just real. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't do that sometimes. Of course I do that sometimes. You know, we're all human. We
Yeah, and it's like it's a new religion, the whole space thing, and that's what you see. Like,
oh, that's an interesting take.
yeah, imagine being in like medieval Europe, and you go up to a Catholic and you say like, I'm not so sure Jesus existed. They'd lose their fucking mind. They'd start screaming and yelling at you. You tell someone today the moon landing never happened.
Fucking really cool way to look at it. Yeah, I like that.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably the reason why they did those ceremonies, was to really drive that idea home. To sort of magically, ritualistically implant this in the human consciousness. That
Well, I think also at the same time, though, like, I really don't know any factual evidence over them doing any particular types of ceremonies on the moon. God knows.
I think Aldrin admitted it.
Well, maybe he did, yeah. But the way I look at that is like the same thing. Like, we burned some sage today.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're not trying to change the population's mind.
Well, do you think they knew? what they were doing, or do you think they were just like praying to kind of dig up themselves and be like, I hope I don't die?
Yeah, that could have been it.
You know?
Yeah, but the whole thing was ritualistic.
Before I step out onto this set and Kubrick gets mad at me because I took the wrong step or said the wrong line.
Yeah, sure. But the whole like perfectly planning it for July 20th when Orion's 19.47 degrees over the horizon. That's not just a couple of dudes praying for safety. This is a whole ritualistic program. You know, like the engineers are in on it. The director of NASA's in on it.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. So like to them, like maybe it was just a nice spiritual thing for them. Because, you know, I think at the time, Buzz Aldrin was like a 28-degree Freemason or something. He wasn't up there yet. He wasn't 32 or 33.
Well, 3 degrees of Master Mason.
Yeah, but not the Scottish Rite goes up to 33.
Yeah, and 33 is an honorary degree.
Yeah, well, technically, 4th to 33
So
are all
you can really
honorary
only
degrees.
get to 32 degrees, and then 33 is like... It's an honorary thing. Like,
Well, my
it's
point
like
is that's what they tell you.
It's like a star badge.
That's what they tell the lower degrees. I mean, the original constitutions of Freemasonry are like, you have to be obedient to unknown masters, and you can't question these unknown masters, and you have to follow their orders. So you don't know who 33-degree Masons are. And even up to the 32nd, you have to do what they tell you to do, and you don't know why they're telling you to do it, because you swore an oath of obedience. And so they might not have known what the whole purpose of the Apollo program was. They might have had no idea that was to change the consciousness of the whole human race or whatever, to hypnotize people into thinking about space expansion. They might not have had any clue. And just like a handful of dudes knew. You know, some like the Illuminati in the 18th and 19th centuries controlled Freemasonry for like 30 fucking years. They were 33 degrees and up, and the Freemasons didn't even know.
15 years.
Well,
It didn't last very long. Illuminati was not around for very long.
that's, again, what they want to tell you. I mean, how can you know? How can you know? You know what I mean?
Fine.
Like, there's George Hegel, who became
Who's George Hegel?
He became the Grand Master of the Illuminati after Adam Weishaupt died. And he lived until, like, the 1850s. So, if he was... Yeah, so that means that the Illuminati existed at least until the 1850s. And there were the European revolutions of the 1840s. So if the Illuminati was around, they probably had a hand in those revolutions too.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a lot of speculation, but my point is that Freemasonry was controlled by an outside group at one point in its history.
Interesting.
And the Masons didn't know.
And these guys went to the moon.
Yeah. So, like, who
So also, they're freaking pretty tight, dude.
tight?
Yeah, if they actually went to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
You know, it's like Kyrie Irving or something. You know, it's like they're tip top in basketball. You know, it's like that's the guy. We're sending these guys.
Oh, yeah,
They
maybe.
know how to rip. You know.
Or it's because they're unquestioningly obedient and easy to use as puppets. That's another option.
Yeah.
I mean, it could go either way. I don't know. It could go either way.
It's just so crazy that one of the greatest accomplishments of humankind is horrendously documented.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Christianity. Everybody debates whether Jesus even existed or not. And here we are 2,000 years later, and like there's institutions built around the belief in the crucifixion, and then there are a bunch of people who don't believe any of it. The moon landing will be the same thing 2,000 years from now. There'll be institutions built around the idea that at one point we went to the moon and we never went back. Nobody ever went back. It'll be 2,000 years from now, and there'll be a whole group of people who don't care about that institution or that belief. It's just the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And we'll just never know.